The live-action Whisper of the Heart does share many similarities with its 1995 Ghibli counterpart. In fact, many of the costume designs match the 1995 film almost completely, and so does a lot of the framing of scenes. However, I cannot say, since I have not read the original manga, how much is transferred from to movie or taken directly from the manga. But this film definitely takes inspiration from the Ghibli film, but I found myself happy with it because it was a new take on the story. I wasn't merely watching what I had seen before but in live action, but a story that was willing to look at what comes after that famous sunrise scene at the ending of the original story. I will always hold the animated version close to my heart, and it is its own thing, but this film does a good job of being a proper sequel, even though it is not a sequel of the Ghibli film. In this movie, we see Seiji and Shizuku again, 10 years after the original, and some things are different. Seiji plays a cello in this version, and Country Roads is missing, though the new song that was made for this film is actually pretty good. Unfortunately, though, the Baron remains an inanimate object for about the entirety of the movie. I can see why the Baron would be hard to translate into live action, and since this movie is two stories in one, in my opinion, I feel as if some of the emotional beats of the original story don't have the same effectiveness as they do in the 1995 film. The Baron's backstory is different and removes Shiro Nishi's love from the story. So the Baron still represents long distance love, whether from distance in aspirations or just actual distance, and as a possible future for Seiji and Shizuku if things don't go right. But it lacks that emotional connection with people in Shizuku's life that makes the story heartbreaking. But the Baron remains a central figure of the story, remaining the character that Shizuku writes about in the end, but the characterization of Baron Humbert von Gigagen isn't visualized like in the 1995 film. However, Tatsuya does get a much bigger role, and I enjoyed that a lot. To start the review, I will begin with talk about Shizuku's character. The movie makes an interesting choice when the scenes depicting childhood are on screen. They are depicted in a warm light and carry a joyful, childish glee and optimism, while the scenes depicting the present are much more gray and take place in the dead of winter. Shizuku is dealing with Seiji living on the other side of the planet, while she simultaneously is still unable to get her writing off the ground. She works for a publishing company instead, but finds that the corporate interests hinder the artistic vision of those who give their work to the company. Shizuku puts away her true feelings in order to conform to the company and deliver the work they want, meaning she has to compromise her values and put away her feelings surrounding the work that was once her dream. Shizuku feels the worst after she refuses to honestly answer a question from a client about his book. She is confronted by her peers at work about whether she sees her work as her priority or as something happening to the side of her real passion, which is writing, not editing. Shizuku doesn't confront this question directly, but after these interactions, her friend Yuko tells her that she should visit Seiji in Italy. Seiji gives similar advice to Shizuku on focusing on the now instead of the future, telling her she should do her best for those in her job now, but then tells her that he does not want her to give up on her dream of writing either, like she had been considering. To which Shizuku points out those are two inherently contradictory ideas, which that the film is trying to look at, trying to understand how one can have happiness while simultaneously working for a dream in the future. This is the same thing Seiji has been experiencing. Him pursuing his dream meant he had to leave Japan, and Shizuku. His dream starts to become destructive the more he tries to force it to happen, causing not only the strings of his instrument to break, but the ones of his relationship as well. On the outside, it would seem Seiji has found more success in his dreams than Shizuku. He is becoming a very good cello player and is putting together his first album. But his dream is still a failed one, as he is lacking in personal connection. His job is getting in the way of his relationships. He may have accomplished his dreams, but he hasn't accomplished happiness. So then, was it a success? This is where the main message of the film is. After Shizuku leaves Italy, breaking it off with him, Seiji takes his instrument and heads outside. He begins just playing, for the sake of playing itself, and for those around him, like he had used to. This was where his dream had started, and here he was finally reverting back to where he had found his love of music. Seiji says a line earlier that he believes dreams can change with time, and he wasn't lying, as he decides to change his dream to take him back to Japan with Shizuku. And since Shizuku and Seiji have one of the best fictional romances out there, of course they get back together. It is revealed too that Shizuku had previously been honest about her feelings as an editor, but over time had fallen into the corporate mold. But she finally decides to follow her emotions, which is to apologize to the writer she wronged and to complete her book anyway. Here she takes the effort to pursue her dream, but be good to those around her as well at the same time. She completes two things at once that seem contradictory. She hasn't become complacent to her situation, but she can find happiness, and her happiness comes with Seiji. When they play their song together in Italy, the color and optimism of their childhood finally returns to them. This film tells us to continue to pursue our dreams even if they are difficult. But it tells us another important message: to think of happiness as a present concept and not a future one, as happiness is easier to share when you are not indebted to it.